emotional arc of losing your son. What was the worst time?
The worst time had to be when I had to wash his body. You know what I mean? That was the worst, but it was also the best.
The man who took Gillie Da Kid's son is never going to prison. The person that police said pulled the trigger on YNG Cheese, Gillie's own flesh and blood, is never seeing a courtroom, never seeing a holding cell, never sitting at a defense table while Gillie stares him down from across the room. That chapter closed forever. And the rest of the people who were there that night, the streets aren't talking, the witnesses aren't talking, and the Philadelphia Police Department just confirmed officially that they have no evidence definitively tying anyone to this murder. Devin Spady, known to the world as YNG Cheese, was 25 years old when he got shot in the back on the 5,800 block of Masher Street in Philly's only neighborhood on July 20th, 2023. His father, one of the realest, most respected voices in hip-hop, had to get a phone call from the police telling him who killed his kid, not because they arrested somebody, not because somebody confessed, because the alleged triggerman himself got shot 17 times in an alleyway and died in front of his own mother. This is the story of a father who lost everything, a case that went cold, a killer who got killed, and a system that failed at every single turn. This ain't a clean story, this ain't a story with a happy ending. This is Philly, this is real life, and y'all need to hear this from the top. Before we get into the night that changed everything, you need to understand who Gilly Da Kid is, because if you don't know his story, you can't fully feel the weight of what happened to this man. Nasir Fard was born on January 1st, 1984 in North Philadelphia. If you know anything about North Philly, you know that's not a zip code that produces soft men. Gillie came up in the streets, learned the game early, and turned that knowledge into a rap career that made him one of Philly's most celebrated voices. In the late 90s, he was a founding member of Major Figures, a group that put Philly on the rap map in a serious way. They signed with Rough Nation Records, dropped Figures for Life in 2000, and had the streets locked. From there, Gillie signed to Lil Wayne's Cash Money Records label. And if you know that story, you know it didn't end pretty. He never released music under that deal and left in 2006. Then came the drama. Gillie publicly claimed he was the ghostwriter behind some of Lil Wayne's most iconic bars on Thought Carter. Wayne denied it. Cash Money denied it. The beef was legendary. That's Gillie's energy type shit. He never been one to bite his tongue, never been one to pretend things are something they're not. He reinvented himself as a podcaster alongside his cousin Wallow 267, a man who served 20 years in prison and came home with nothing but wisdom. Together, they built $1 million worth of game into one of the most listened to podcasts in hip-hop. Real talk, real stories, real consequences. That's the foundation of who Gillie is. He built something from the ground up twice, and he was in the process of watching his son try to build something from the ground up too. His son, Devin Spady, who went by YNG Cheese, was following in his father's footsteps. He was rapping, he was moving, he was 25 years old and had his whole life in front of him. Gillie has spoken openly about the fact that their relationship had some friction because Devin was leaning towards street life, and Gillie, a man who had seen what that life actually cost, was desperately trying to pull him back. He said on Club Shay Shay, "No cap, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was struggling with my son trying to get him off the streets. We didn't have the best relationship when he passed because he wanted to be a street NG gay and I didn't believe in that." That right there is a man carrying something that most people can't even comprehend. The guilt of knowing you were fighting to save your son's life and still losing him. That's a weight that doesn't lift. Now here's where we set the scene, fam. Thursday night, July 20th, 2023, Philadelphia, just before 8:30 p.m. The 5,800 block of Masher Street in Olney, a neighborhood that sits in that complicated part of North Philly where regular life and street life intersect in ways that don't always make the news until somebody gets hurt. YNG Cheese pulled up to the block, not his block. Gillie himself confirmed this. His son wasn't from that area, wasn't tied to whatever was going on there that night. He just pulled up, out there for maybe 5 minutes, fam. 5 minutes. And that's all it took. Shots erupted. Multiple gunmen opened fire on the block. Cheese got hit in the back. Reports say he was struck once, and that one shot was enough. He was rushed to Einstein Medical Center where he died within minutes of arriving. 2 other men were also struck that night. A 28-year-old shot twice in the leg and a 31-year-old shot once in the hip. Both of them survived. Cheese didn't. Gillie had just been hyping his son up the day before. He had posted on social media, moving as a proud father does, and then 24 hours later, everything stopped. The Philadelphia Police Department responded to the scene. They found no weapons, they made no arrests, they had no immediate suspects, and that's where this case sat, open, cold, and bleeding, for over a year and a half. Think about that. Over 500 people got killed in Philadelphia in 2023 alone. The city was drowning in homicides, and in the chaos of all that bloodshed, the murder of one of hip-hop's most beloved figure's sons went unsolved. No arrests, no charges, nothing. Wallow267 posted a tribute to his lil cousin that broke the internet. The whole culture showed up. Metro boomin', 21 Savage, 03 Greedo, Young Scooter, Sway, Ebro, Big Boy. Everybody dropped love for Gillie and his family. Gillie himself went quiet for a while. When he finally broke his silence, he was raw about it. He talked about the Islamic burial process, how he had to wash his own son's body. He said, "The worst time had to be when I had to wash his body, but it was also the best because I became a man that day." That is a level of grief and love that words can barely touch. So who was in those streets that night? Let me break it down for you. For months, the investigation crawled. The Philadelphia Police Department was scouring surveillance footage, monitoring social media, working their street sources. And here's what the streets already knew, what the investigators were slowly piecing together. The shooting on Masher Street wasn't random. Those blocks were beefing. Whatever was going down between those crews that night, Cheese had nothing to do with it. He was just there. Wrong place, wrong block, wrong 5 minutes of his life. Police started developing leads. They started zeroing in on a name, a face, and that name was connected to somebody who, on the surface, looked like the furthest thing from a street killer. Enter Noah Scurry. And this is where this story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. Noah Scurry was 16 years old in the summer of 2023, a junior at Samuel Fells High School in Feltonville, Philadelphia. On paper, this kid was the exact opposite of what you'd expect from a murder suspect. He had the highest SAT score in his entire school. Division I basketball programs were looking at him. Straight A student. His family was proud. His future was supposed to be bright. But here's the real tea, gang. Underneath all of that, Noah Scurry was living a completely different life at night. Under the name Joker OTV, he was making drill music, and not just rapping about it. He was posting videos with a Joker mask on his face and guns in his hands. Gillie himself pointed to this when he broke everything down publicly. He got videos with a Joker mask on, bunch of guns in his hand. This is the same kid who was supposedly getting Division I looks. Double Life doesn't even begin to cover it, and it gets deeper, fam. Scurry himself was a victim in a shooting back in May 2023, just 2 months before Cheese was killed. On the 4600 block of Mulberry Street, shots were fired and a man in his 60s was killed. Scurry was there. He survived that one. The streets were already moving around him in ways that should have been a wake-up call. Police started tying threads together. Sources confirmed that investigators were building a case. They were close, real close, to arresting Noah Scurry for the murder of YNG Cheese. The case was nearly ready to move. And then January 14th, 2025 happened. January 13th, 2025. Noah Scurry, now 17, posted his first official solo music video on YouTube. The track is called Swing My Door. He's rapping under the name Joker OTV. The video already had his Joker mask aesthetic going heavy. Aggressive energy, street content, the whole nine. The video would go on to rack up over 2.6 million views. He dropped that video on January 13th. The very next morning, January 14th, 2025, around 7 a.m., Noah Scurry walked out of his home with his mother to be dropped off at school. And that's when a white Jeep Cherokee pulled into the alleyway behind Rohrer Street. At least 20 shots were fired. Investigators believe at least 2 shooters stepped out of that vehicle with a possible third person behind the wheel. 17 of those 20 shots hit Noah Scurry. He died in front of his mother in the driveway of his own home on his way to school. 17 years old, shot 17 times. The math on that ain't lost on anyone who's paying attention. No arrests were made in Scurry's murder either. No motive was officially released. No suspects were publicly named. Police called it a targeted attack, meaning whoever did this came for him specifically. They knew where he lived. They knew his routine. The streets knew something that the police were still piecing together. And Gillie? Gillie found out about the killer of his son the way no father should ever find out anything, through a phone call from the Philadelphia Police Department informing him that the man they were about to arrest for his son's murder had just been killed himself. Let that hit for a second. February 12th, 2025, Gilly Da Kid sits down with Shannon Sharpe on Club Shay Shay. They're riding the wave of the Philadelphia Eagles winning Super Bowl 59. Gilly had been at the game, running out of the tunnel with the team like the North Philly legend he is. It's supposed to be a celebratory conversation. Shannon Sharpe brings up Noah Scurry as part of a broader conversation about gun violence and how young athletes used to be protected by their communities. Shannon had no idea what was about to come out of Gilly's mouth. Sharpe asked Gilly directly, "Have you talked to the kid that took your son's life?" Gilly's response dropped the room to silence. "Nah, I never met him. Only reason I knew is because the police called me and told me once he was murdered. The kid had just got shot 17 times, he was walking with his mom and he got murdered. And then the police notified me and let me know that he was one of the kids that was pretty much about to get locked up for the murder, but he got murdered first." Then Sharpe, later in the same conversation, not realizing he'd already heard the connection, brought Scurry up again while discussing gun violence, and Gilly hit him with something that created one of the most uncomfortable silences in podcast history. "That's who killed my son." Dead air. Shannon Sharpe just sat there. The weight of that moment, a father calmly naming the person who took his child's life, a person who is already dead, a person who will never face a courtroom, was something the cameras couldn't fake. Gilly followed it up. "The 17-year-old basketball player that just got shot 17 times? That's who killed my son." Now here's where the Philadelphia Police Department stepped in and complicated the narrative. Deputy Police Commissioner Frank Venore publicly responded to Gilly's claims the very next day. His statement was direct. "Through evidence, I don't have anyone connected definitively that is responsible for this homicide." The PPD confirmed they were aware of Gilly's remarks and the speculation circulating online, and that investigators were still reviewing social media posts and searching for surveillance footage. So you got two different realities happening at the same time. Gilly says police called him and told him Scurry was about to get locked up. The PPD publicly says they have no definitive evidence connecting anyone to the murder. That gap right there, fam, that's the gap where justice goes to die. And Scurry's family? They came out swinging. His cousin Brianna McGlynn, 30, went public and dismissed everything Gilly said. Have they provided proof? Because his son died more than a year ago. They're literally dragging my family through the mud. She questioned whether Gilly was using her cousin's name to stay relevant, and she demanded that people let her family mourn. You can understand both sides here. Gilly got a phone call from law enforcement. He's not just making things up out of thin air. At the same time, Scurry's cousin is defending a 17-year-old who can't defend himself. That's a complicated human reality. Nobody in that situation has it clean. Here's what we know for certain. No cap, laying out just the facts. YNG Cheese. Devin Spady, 25 years old, was shot and killed on July 20th, 2023 on Masher Street in Olney, Philadelphia. He was not the intended target. He was caught in somebody else's block beef at the absolute worst moment. Noah Scurry, 17 years old, known as Joker OTV, was the person Gilly says police identified as a suspect in that murder. Whether Scurry was the one who pulled the trigger or one of multiple people involved that night remains officially unconfirmed. Scurry was shot 17 times on January 14, 2025 and died in front of his mother. No arrest has been made in his killing either. The Philadelphia Police Department has made 0 arrests in the murder of YNG Cheese. The case remains officially open. Now think about what that means in terms of justice. The person police were allegedly building a case against is dead. The streets have their own version of events. Gilly's nephew, according to reports, was investigated in connection with Scurry's death. All Hip Hop reported that a cryptic message appeared on Instagram shortly after Scurry's killing that read, "The body ain't worth it if the streets don't know you did it." Make of that what you will. What we can say clearly is this. If Noah Scurry was indeed responsible for Cheese's death, street justice moved faster than legal justice by a country mile. The system had nearly 2 years to make an arrest and couldn't bring the case to a courtroom before the streets settled it themselves. And now, with Scurry gone, the case on Cheese's murder essentially becomes a dead end. The primary suspect is buried. Any other people who may have been involved that night, anyone else who was on that block, anyone who drove a car, anyone who handed someone a weapon, they're still out here, living, moving, free. That last part is the part nobody wants to say out loud. Noah Scurry may have been the trigger man, but nobody does a shooting like that alone. Somebody drove, somebody planned, somebody knew that block was going to get shot up that night, and every single one of those people is going to walk away from this without ever sitting in a courtroom. Gilly himself said it plainly when asked why people keep quiet in cases like this. When you do something in the streets, the streets know. He wasn't pointing at Scurry specifically in that moment. He was talking about the code, the same code that kept witnesses silent on Masher Street, the same code that means investigators are reviewing social media footage 2 years later with no arrests to show for it. Philadelphia is a city where that code runs deep. In 2024 alone, more than 1,200 people were shot according to the Philadelphia Gun Violence Dashboard. The city has been grappling with a homicide epidemic for years, and the clearance rate on murder cases, meaning the percentage of murders that actually get solved, tells a brutal story. When communities don't trust the system, witnesses don't come forward. When witnesses don't come forward, cases go cold. When cases go cold, the streets handle things their own way. And when the streets handle things their own way, somebody else's father gets that phone call. Somebody else's mother watches her child die in a driveway. The cycle feeds itself. Let me break it down for you on a level that goes beyond just this one case, because there's something here that speaks to the entire culture right now. Noah Scurry had everything. Fam. Legitimate everything. Straight A student, highest SAT score in his school, Division I basketball recruitment on the table, a way completely out, and he chose, or got pulled into, depending on how you look at it, a life that robbed him of all of it before he even turned 18. He was posting videos with a Joker mask and guns at 16 and 17 years old. He was allegedly connected to violence that took lives before his own life was taken. He released his first solo drill track on January 13, 2025, and was murdered the next morning. The track Swing My Door has over 2.6 million views right now. That music video is a monument to a life that chose the wrong lane. Gillie spoke on this with real pain because he saw it with his own son too. He said, "These kids actually think that you can't make it as a rapper unless you killed somebody. This is the mindset." That's not him being preachy. That's a man who built a real career in rap, who came up in the streets of North Philly, who went toe-to-toe with Cash Money Records, who built a multi-million-dollar podcast empire, telling you straight that the myth these kids are chasing is a lie. You don't need to be a killer to be a rapper. You don't need a body count to have credibility. Cheese wasn't even the target, fam. He wasn't the one Joker OTV was beefing with. He just pulled up to the wrong block at the wrong time. And a 25-year-old rapper who was somebody's son, somebody's friend, somebody's father figure just stopped existing. That is the real tragedy inside the tragedy. Not just that Cheese died, not just that his alleged killer died before facing justice. It's that none of this needed to happen at all. 2 young men are dead. A father had to wash his own son's body as part of a burial ritual. A mother watched her 17-year-old son get shot 17 times in a driveway. And the other people responsible for what happened on Masher Street in July of 2023, they're walking around Philly right now and they will most likely never be charged, despite everything. Despite the grief, despite the unanswered questions, despite having to find out who killed his son through a death notification instead of an arrest, Gilly Da Kid has not broken in public, not in the way you'd expect. He described Scurry's death as divine justice. His words. He had to deal with God. That's how I look at it. That's a man who has found a way to make peace with an outcome that a courtroom never delivered. Whether that peace is real or fragile, only Gillie knows. He bought a billboard in Times Square in July of 2024, as on the 1-year anniversary of Cheese's death, to memorialize his son. He's been publicly outspoken about gun violence in Philadelphia. He's using his platform on $1 million worth of game to speak to young people directly about the traps that the streets set for them. And he runs out of the tunnel with the Philadelphia Eagles before playoff games, draped in oversized Eagles gear, because that's what it means to still be alive and still be representing your city even when your city has taken something irreplaceable from you. Cheese's mother, Tara Toy Fears, told the Philadelphia Inquirer that when she heard Gillie's comments on Club Shay Shay, she hadn't heard anything from police about a connection between Scurry and her son's death. She said, "I can't even really say. I don't really know how to feel about this." That right there is a mother who has been living in limbo for 2 years, getting no official answers, watching the case remain open, and then learning about a possible suspect not from law enforcement but from a podcast. That's not justice. That's not closure. That's just pain with a different name. Here's the reality of the situation as it stands in 2025 and beyond. The murder of YNG Cheese, Devin Spady, is still officially unsolved. The primary suspect is dead. The secondary suspects, if there are any, have not been identified publicly and have not been charged. The Philadelphia Police Department continues to investigate, but with no arrests in nearly 2 years, the odds of this case ever reaching a courtroom are slim to none. Joker OTV, Noah Scurry, took whatever secrets he had to the ground on January 14th, 2025. His music is still up on YouTube. Swing My Door has millions of views, and somewhere in those lyrics, if you listen close enough through the Philly drill production, there might be things that cops have been analyzing for over a year without finding enough to build a legal case. The rest of the people involved in the night Cheese died, they know what they did. The block knows what happened. The streets have been talking about this for months, but talking and testifying are two completely different things. In Philly in 2025, nobody is walking into a police station to give a statement about a murder on a beef block. Gillie said it himself, when you do something in the streets know, and the streets have already handled the most prominent name connected to his son's death. As for the others, the driver of whatever car pulled up that July night, the people who planned it, the people who watched it happen and said nothing, they're free, and they will likely remain free. This is what a city in crisis looks like from the inside. Not statistics on a dashboard, though those matter. Not policy debates about policing, though those matter too. This is what it looks like when a father has to wash his son's dead body and then 2 years later gets a phone call telling him the alleged killer is also dead, and then watches the system shrug and say they don't have definitive evidence to close the case. Gilly Da Kid deserved justice through every legal, legitimate channel available. His son deserved better than being a wrong place, wrong time casualty of a beef he had nothing to do with. Cheese's mother deserved an arrest, a trial, something to hold on to. Instead, they got phone calls and silence and an open case file. Real recognize real, and the real thing happening in Philly and in cities all across this country is that the gap between what the streets know and what the courts can prove is exactly where killers live comfortably. It's exactly where grief festers without resolution, and it's exactly where cycles of violence restart over and over again, because when the system doesn't deliver, people find other ways. The case of YNG Cheese and the death of Joker OTV and the grief of Gillie Da Kid isn't just one story, it's every story. It's the blueprint for how violence perpetuates itself in communities that the system has already half written off. One young man dead at 25 who wasn't even the target. One 17-year-old dead with more potential than almost anyone in his school. 0 people in handcuffs. And a father on a podcast stage describing what it felt like to wash his son's body before they put him in the ground. No charges, no trial, no verdict, just grief on top of grief on top of more grief. That's what the real streets look like when the cameras finally stop rolling. Drop a comment. Tell me what y'all think about how Philadelphia and the system overall failed this family, and make sure you check the next one because we're not done pulling these threads.